Substrates. They're the foundations of our planted aquariums and a critical part of the ecosystem we're trying to build. They are also a pain to change out later, so I do recommend spending some time to make sure you get the exact substrate that you want for your tank. I have 4 tanks that I want to show you today. Each tank has a slight variation or combination of substrates, and these are the 4 methods that I use the most anymore. I've tried a few over the years, but I think these 4 are probably my favorite. This is tank number 1. Now this tank isn't much to look at, it's not very exciting, it's also pretty new, but it is a good example of the gravel sand substrate, just your average aquarium substrate. You go to the pet store, you buy a bag of something, it's going to be a bag of rocks, it's going to be a bag of sand. That's what this is. There's nothing really special here. What is kind of special about this is that it is just my jumbled mix. Over the years, you tend to accumulate a lot of different substrates in various quantities, and I've ended up just dumping everything into one bucket, and that's what this tank is. It is the dump, the cumulative dump bucket of substrate that I have. It's mostly a mix of pool filter sand, pea gravel, little bits of lava rock, some little bit of black sand, and some aragonite, which is kind of like basically a limestone or a crushed coral type substrate. There's a lot of really good pros. One is the cost. This stuff is really cheap. I mean, it's basically a bag of gravel or sand. It doesn't need to be fancy. You can get very fancy sand and gravel, but it doesn't have to be. It's very affordable. Another pro with this type of substrate is that most of it is completely inert, meaning that it's not going to affect the water chemistry of your aquarium, which can be a really nice plus if you have or are working with fish that need a specific type of water. If your water is in one of the extremes, like maybe you have really, really soft water, then this substrate can be great because there's nothing in here that's going to just immediately start lowering your pH and buffering it down. Like, this stuff can be very stable, which is sometimes exactly what you want. This tank I've set up mostly as a quarantine tank, temporary holding tank. Maybe I'll use it to try to breed some different species. Like, I'm not setting this tank up to be that super dense planted aquascape. And for most people, if that's what you're wanting, you're gonna want something a little bit more beefy than this. However, if your water is really, really soft and you just can't deal with an aqua soil or something else bringing down your pH, this substrate could be great for you. Now, the cons with this is that there is no nutrient value. The plants aren't going to root into gravel and sand and find organic material to grow with. You have to provide that to them. You can do that through a couple different methods, one being root tabs, and the other just being good old-fashioned fish poop. Fish poop is a great thing for plants to grow off of. Not very elegant, but it does work. So the older your gravel sand tank gets, the more nutriently rich your substrate can become. And by doing that over long periods of time, you can build up a nice layer. Now right now, there really isn't much in the way of fish. I have one bristlenose pleco over there in the back. I think this is a green dragon pleco. He was bullying my other plecos in one of my other tanks, so he just kind of hangs out here. So there you go, there's some pleco poop. All that, great food for plants. There are a couple things to consider when you're picking out your gravel or sand for a planted aquarium. Usually you're going to want to avoid substrates that are really, really fine. Most of the time, you're going to want something that's a larger grain sand. This in here is a pool filter sand. It's cheap, but it's really well suited for this aquatic environment. And I feel like my plants do pretty well rooted into the sand. Along with it, I have mixed in some pea gravel. Pea gravel is on the big side. I wouldn't use pea gravel as the only substrate if I'm going to keep plants. Usually you want something that's going to be a lot smaller than a pea gravel. for like your bulk substrate. But right here I have it as just kind of like a bit of an accent stone. Another nice thing with this substrate combination is that it's really easy to add things to it. You can enrich it with root tabs, or you can add things like aragonite or crushed coral, which can help buffer your water. So if you have really, really soft water, you can add that to your substrate. It will, no, if you have a light substrate, it'll blend right in and you're good to go. It'll help buffer up your water and you'll have a grand time. Next up is my 75-gallon planted tank. This is my big primary display tank, and it has a combination of aqua soil and sand. Hi. Alright, there's glare, and my cat is in the glare. Say hello, Wade. Hello, Wade. Oh, you're way too... Oh, you're leaving now? Okay. Oh, I need to get out of the glare. Oh, gosh. Wade. Okay. The base of the tank is all sand and gravel, as you would kind of normally do, but I've added these pots of aqua soil throughout the tank. And this is just one of them here, so I can show you, but I have different sizes of pots. Now, a couple of these are plastic pots, and the rest of these are a kind of fired ceramic. Or you could use like any terracotta pot, but that's what I've used here. These have held up for years in here. Now, if you're going to use plastic, I'd recommend something that's not going to don't get the cheapest plastic ever. Most places I've layered up this lava rock to hide it. Now, I don't have it hiding completely, and that's just because this lava rock can be a little bit of a pain to clean periodically. So I want to hopefully fill it all in with plants everywhere. But the aqua soil is, being isolated like this allows me to keep fish that I maybe normally wouldn't with just aqua soil. Now, these tetras are totally fine, but I've got, you can see his tail and a bunch of his poop, but I have a nice big pleco right back there. The pleco really benefits from having the sand. He would be just fine with aqua soil, but because aqua soil is a bit lighter, whenever he would swim through the tank or dig through it, it would disturb it, throw it up in the air, make a bit of a cloudy mess. By far my favorite thing about this combination is the cost efficiency. This allows me to just spot plants wherever I want them, but anywhere I want to leave open, I can, and it's really easy to do. You can do this in smaller tanks. You may not even have to use pots. You can use things like just a wall of rocks to separate your sand and gravel, or your aqua soil and sand or whatever. Separate your substrates. So you can do it that way too, but I really love this particular combination. Aqua soil comes in many different flavors, and it can be, I don't know, I think it was a bit confusing and a bit overwhelming when I was getting into planted tanks trying to find a good aqua soil to use. Anymore, I feel like all of them are pretty good. I'm a bit more biased towards the ADA soils. I've just used them the longest, but I've used a bit of fluvial stratum. Fluvial stratum's not bad, but I feel like it doesn't have the same nutrient load as some of the other options. I do have a Brightwell substrate. I haven't used it yet, but I'm excited to try that out. Next up is my 29-gallon planted tank. This tank is all aqua soil, so no combination here. And this is usually how I like to set up most of my tanks. Doing a single substrate is so much easier to maintain and keep clean. There's no way that substrates can mix, which is great. But I really do like that I can just fill up this entire tank with plants over time if I want to. I think I like that option, and I really like the look. The dark aqua soil substrate is quite aesthetically pleasing to me. I know some people really hate looking at it, but personally, I think once you kind of fill it all in with plants, I think it looks quite nice. Aqua soil is the gold standard of planted tank substrate. There is nothing else that can really compete with the versatility and just the overall ease of use of aqua soil. I'm all about doing planted tanks and doing aquariums and the hobby on a budget, but I I don't like to skimp out on my substrate. Changing this stuff out later is a pain. I'd much rather get the right substrate, the best substrate the first time. Aquasoil has so many great properties that make it perfect for plants. It's lightweight, at least compared to gravel and sand. It's going to be pretty lightweight. It is heavier or a bit more dense than an actual potting soil or something like that. But that lightweight substrate is really easy for plants to push their roots through. Aquasoil can have a bit of a shelf life. If you're really pushing it at its max, like trying to grow as much plant as possible, CO2 highlight, whole 9 yards, you can strip it of its nutrients. But if you're keeping things a bit more low-key, you're not pumping it too full of CO2, you're not pushing it at its max, it can last for a really long time. This substrate's many years old. I'm sure its nutritional capacity is like dwindled in that time. Even depleted Aquasoil is still a really good substrate option. I still love it because of the ease of which I can plant into this. And it still would work just as the sand and gravel combination does. If I feel like my Aquasoil is starting to run a bit slow, I can add in root tabs and start doing liquid fertilizer. The biggest con is the price. Aquasoil is not cheap. This tank is 29 gallons. This is a pretty good size for me. If I had something much bigger, 40 gallons, I might hesitate to fill that entire tank with Aquasoil because I feel like that'd be a little pricey. But around this kind of moderate tank size, just full Aquasoil, I think is a great combination. Aquasoil will lower your pH. This might not actually be a con for some people. If your tank or if your source water is really hard, then Aquasoil can help alleviate some of your water parameter issues. But if you have really soft water, you should probably be a little careful because your pH might start dipping. You know, if you start to get below 6.5 or so, you might want to pay attention to that. That buffer to bring your pH down doesn't last forever, and that will deplete usually within a few years. Last up, I want to show a combination of sand and gravel. In this case, also Aquasoil, but it's a different combination because the sand and gravel is, well, it's supposed to be on top of the Aquasoil. Now, already we can look at one of the cons of this particular method. Got my planting tweezer pointer. Yeah, there's a bunch of Aquasoil on top, and that is the biggest con. Aquasoil is lighter than sand and gravel, and it will push its way up the substrate until it sits on the top. If you have fish that dig, it will exacerbate this issue. But aside from that negative, I do enjoy this combination. If you really want to grow some plants, but you've got softer water, or maybe you don't want to do Aquasoil, you can always swap this for like a potting soil or a traditional like dirt. You put dirt in there, then this method can work really, really well for you. I've done plant dirted tanks before. I don't have one to show you, but it is another really good option if that's something that you want to go down. It's a lot more affordable, but when you're using potting soil, you just need to be patient. It just takes I feel like it takes a long time for it to settle in and for everything just to work really well. But what I love about this method is that it traps all the nutrients, all that rich Aquasoil is all stuck underneath here. And by separating it like this with the sand and gravel, is that it will keep those nutrients trapped so they're not leaching into the actual the water column itself. You'll want to make sure you have a solid inch, maybe inch and a half of sand or gravel on top. If you're going to use gravel and just gravel, make sure it's a small gravel. So that's substrates. There's lots of other combinations and little tweaks that you can do to different methods that you'll find all over the place. But hopefully this inspires you to try out a new substrate combination, do something new, or dip your toes into planted tanks for the first time because it's a lot of fun. I absolutely love doing planted tanks, and messing around with substrates and trying new substrates is just another another layer of fun and interactivity that plants really bring, and hopefully this shows it off for you guys a little bit. Let me know in the comments what your favorite substrate is for your planted tanks, and I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.